a man reshapes the world. Around 2,000 years ago, on a hillside by the sea, Jesus speaks to a diverse crowd about the kingdom of heaven. Listen closely, because this is the real Sermon on the Mount, and it will change how you see God and neighbor. This is Jesus, a teacher whose words carry authority. He gathers fishermen, tax collectors, religious leaders, and the poor, and he speaks as one who knows God. His voice calls people to a different life because the kingdom of heaven has come near. The hillside fills with people, and when Jesus begins, a hush falls. He opens not with law or ritual, but with blessings, the Beatitudes, and the crowd leans in because he promises mercy, mourning turned to comfort, and a reversal of fortunes for the humble. As the Beatitudes continue, Jesus names those whom God favors: the poor in spirit, the meek, those who hunger for justice. He explains that the kingdom elevates what the world overlooks, and that blessing rests on hearts turned toward God, not on social status. In that moment, Jesus shifts to metaphor. You are salt and light. He tells them that followers should preserve goodness and shine in dark places. This explains the ethical role of the community of faith, to influence society without becoming what it seeks to change. As the crowd listens, Jesus addresses the law. He says he did not come to abolish it but to fulfill it, and then raises the standard. True righteousness must exceed that of the scribes. He explains that inward motives matter as much as outward compliance. In that very moment, Jesus takes familiar commands and turns them inward. He teaches that murder begins in the heart as anger. Therefore, he urges reconciliation before worship, explaining that peaceful relationships are evidence of the kingdom's work within us. As the hillside listens, Jesus redefines adultery to include lustful intent. He explains that inner purity matters because God's standard reaches the heart. This teaching shifts the discussion from legal guilt to transformative desire, calling people to integrity in thought and action. When the subject turns to divorce, Jesus insists on the original intention for marriage, permanence, and faithfulness. He acknowledges the hardness of human hearts, but calls the crowd to live toward God's design, making fidelity not just legal but covenantal and sacred. Then Jesus warns against elaborate oaths. He says, speak plainly yes or no, because honesty reflects the kingdom. Complex vows, he explains, were a way to manipulate truth. Instead, integrity in speech demonstrates God's reign in daily life. At that point, Jesus delivers what shocks them most: love your enemies and pray for your persecutors. He explains that enemies are transformed not by retaliation but by unexpected mercy, and that such love reveals the nature of God the Father, who is kind to all. As the sun climbs, Jesus turns to devotion practices. He instructs to give, pray, and fast without show. He explains that religious acts must flow from a heart seen by God, not for human applause, because the Father, who sees in secret, rewards genuine humility and trust. In that moment, Jesus gives a model prayer. He addresses God as Father, asks for the kingdom and daily provision, and for forgiveness that matches our willingness to forgive others. He teaches that prayer shapes desire toward God's will and community dependence, not self-sufficiency. After that, Jesus warns about earthly treasure. He tells them to store up treasure in heaven where moth and rust cannot destroy. He links a generous heart to clear vision, teaching that what we treasure shapes our moral choices, and where our heart will ultimately rest. When the crowd frets, Jesus tells them not to worry about food or clothing. He points to birds and flowers as examples of Father's care, and insists that seeking God's kingdom reorders priorities. Worry blocks trust. Trust opens life to the Father's provision. Soon after Jesus confronts the urge to judge, he uses the image of a plank and speck to show hypocrisy. He teaches that self-examination precedes helpful correction, and that mercy, not harsh condemnation, aligns with the Father's character and fosters restoration. In that passage, Jesus encourages persistent prayer. Ask, seek, knock. He assures them that the Father gives good gifts to those who ask. This promises that God responds to longing shaped by trust and aligned with His will, building a relationship, not a transaction. Then Jesus summarizes ethics in one decisive line: do to others what you would want them to do to you. He frames it as a summary of the law and the prophets. This simple rule reorients relationships toward empathy and mutual accountability within the kingdom. As the teaching continues, Jesus speaks of two gates: a narrow gate that leads to life, and a wide gate that leads to destruction. He warns that many follow easy paths. True discipleship requires obedience and sacrifice because the kingdom calls for costly loyalty rather than comfortable conformity. In that moment, Jesus warns about false prophets who appear kind but destroy. He tells them to judge by fruit. Actions reveal identity. The spiritual discernment he teaches protects the community and keeps the kingdom from being distorted by flattering but destructive leaders. When the sermon nears its end, Jesus tells two brief parables about building. One who hears his words and acts is like a wise builder on rock, standing through storms. One who hears and does not act is foolish, and the house collapses. Obedience proves the teaching true. When the sermon ends, the crowd disperses changed. Matthew 5-7 teaches that the kingdom reshapes desires, relationships, and practices. The lesson is concrete. True kingdom living is inward transformation shown by outward obedience, mercy, and trust. If this story moved you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell so you do not miss the next one.